Now, let me tell you something. My publisher, I quoted this in several of my books, and one of my publishers said, Lenni, you are Jabotinsky's greatest fan. You know, and I told him the reason is that Jabotinsky was a gifted linguist. I mean, he would come to Belgium and speak to the audience in Flemish. Now, no foreigner speaks Flemish, you know, yeah. And then in Norway, he would recite from the epics, you know. Okay, I mean, all right. He had this kind of, in our language, B follows A mentality, all right? And since I pride myself and call myself a scientific socialist, you know, I try to be logical, so I admire that kind of B follows A thinking. And he just says, look, guys, come on, there ain't a country in the world, the Sioux Indians, the Aztecs, the Bushmen in Australia, don't matter who they are, what they are, colonies as colonies, we as colonies. Because look, this guy fought in, like you said, the British were colonials. Well, Jabotinsky organized the Jewish Legion, you see, with pith helmets, no less, that fought for the British as they liberated Palestine, which everybody called it Palestine then, liberated Palestine from the Ottomans, you see. All right, so, I mean, we're talking about a guy. I'll tell you something about Jabotinsky. I am a fan of him as a writer. Okay, but, in 1934, Benito Mussolini organized a Zionist revisionist squadron at his Naval Academy. Now, this is Dr. Wolfgang von Weisel, the financial director of Jabotinsky's Zionist movement. This is an article. He was interviewed in Bucharest, and this is what he said. He personally was a supporter of fascism, and he rejoiced at the victory of fascist Italy in Abyssinia as a triumph of the white races against the black. Now, this is the Ethiopian War, all right? One of the preludes, the Ethiopian War, the Japanese Manchukuo, all right, the Ethiopian War, the Spanish Civil War, and then Burma World War II. Right? That's the way it runs. And Jabotinsky's followers, about 35 of them, there were more there, 134 went to Jabotinsky's Naval Academy, but at least 35 joined the youth section of the Italian Fascist Party. In other words, they weren't pro-fascist, you know, like some foreigners were. They were fascisti, you know, right? And they were singing Giovinezza, etc. All right, so.
All right, I want to give it a shot. This is Paul DeRIenzo here off camera. I want to give it a shot.
Off camera?
Off camera.
What are you doing off camera, Paul?
Well, the other camera I accidentally unplugged, I guess. I'm going to try and figure it out. But
you
we have
see what I'm up against here.
But we got one working, and that's all that matters. And so what Shannon Taylor, I want to give you a minute and a half to respond, but then I'd like to ask a question because you know, the situation is the United States. I teach, you know, every November I have to teach the history of Thanksgiving, and we all teach one lesson to the kids because they want to have a positive vision, and we often don't tell the full story on the other side, that there is quite a dark side and a dangerous side and a violent side to the foundation of the United States that many people might be ashamed of or embarrassed to even know. We don't talk about it, but the United States is here. Ain't going away. Anyway, it's not going away anytime soon. However, Israel founded, like many, my point is, like many countries, however Israel was founded, or any country is founded, I don't think there's one country that can be totally proud of its foundation, maybe a couple. And so looking at that reality, where do we go from here? But I want to give you a minute and a half to respond to what he said first.
Well, Jabotinsky to me represents one line. And he said to the Jews of Europe, and recognize that Jabotinsky is not the Zionism of the 1800s of Herzl, and he's not of the 1900s. He's of a much later period. He's of the pre-World War II period, essentially, when he's saying Europe is burning, and he's trying to warn the Jews to get out of a Europe that's about to annihilate them, and they are not listening. and he wants them to go to Israel, to Palestine at that time called, because the Romans essentially annihilated what was Judea and called it Palestine. And he wants them to get out of Europe and go there. And that's Jabotinsky. Everything else is insignificant as far as Jabotinsky is concerned. That's what he's remembered for Beitar, for get out of burning Europe and save yourself. And they didn't listen, unfortunately. And so that's his legacy as a prophet that wasn't heard. Okay. And as far as America's, I don't see America and Israel as having any kind of a tragic beginning. There are flaws. There are terrible flaws. There's no tragedy. You want to look at look at France, look at England, look at Italy, look at Turkey, look at the Arab countries that were formed by the sword, look at the church and went around converting everybody, look at China that went with the Mongols and went around with killing and murdering. America and Israel did not do that. They did not do that. The Spanish came to America and wiped out the Indians, and then we went westward with broken treaties and with Andrew Jackson, but we never did anything to parallel what the rest of the world did. And what we did do later on, in the present day, America, is an environmental horror, where we have environmentally poisoned the earth. That is a terrible, not our past, but our present. As far as Israel, Israel was attacked on its nation day by all the invading Arab armies. So it is they who bear the stain, not Israel. Israel was comprised of the survivors from the Holocaust camps, and Israel was comprised of settlers who bought their land from Arab Fedayeen, and it was comprised of refugees, and never was bought by blood except in defense. So Israel has nothing to be ashamed of and everything to be proud of.
Okay. Let's deal with the question that you asked.
Yeah, I wanted to bring,
okay.
Right, and that's it, because I can't agree totally, because even people who are a lot more conservative than me have a lot of issues with discussing Thanksgiving, knowing if they know what happened in the years after that great Thanksgiving meal. The Indians came and they helped us, they helped the Pilgrims, the first Americans, and then within a few years they were in a bloody war. Though that part of it is often forgotten, but we want to tell the part of the story where the Indians came and helped us, and we all had a big dinner together, and everybody was friends, and the kids love to hear that story. That's something that happens in historical tellings all the time. You're a historian.
Okay.
Lenni Brenner.
Okay. One of the real problems when you say Israel is there, you know, like America is there, Israel is there, where do we go from here, is what are the boundaries of this Israel? We know the boundaries of America, but what are the boundaries of this Israel? The essence of the Iron Wall, and remember that Premier designate Benjamin Netanyahu, his father was Jabotinsky's secretary, all right? So, I mean, we're talking, you know, holy writ as far as he's concerned.
The current premier.
Yeah. No, the guy who's just been designated as,
right.
Yeah, because the guy who is Olmert is... No one disputes he's the most crooked politician on the planet.
They haven't actually. I often don't quite get Israeli politics. So they haven't really
that's
crossed
a legal
over
thing,
yet.
but I mean, trust me, everyone says he's guilty. He's guilty of things I haven't even thought of. If you know what I mean? Okay. But at any rate, what I'm getting at is that Netanyahu's interpretation of Jabotinsky is, and he says so, I am not for giving the Palestinians a Palestinian state. Okay.